Hi and welcome to part 1 of a 3-part video short series giving a general overview of the history of the British Phantom Aviation Group's Phantom F-4J UK ZE360. In this video, we will be looking at ZE360's years in American service. Prior to serving with the Royal Air Force, ZE360 had a previous life with the United States Navy, serving almost all of that time with the Atlantic Fleet. Originally built as an F-4J at the McDonnell Aircraft Corporation based in St. Louis, Missouri, she was given the BU number 155574. I'll actually be referring to 360 as 5574 during this part of the video regarding the American phase of her service life. The first flight occurred on the 6th of April 1968. Accepted into the Navy infantry on the 29th of April the same year, 5574 was assigned to her first US Navy Fighter Squadron VF-31 in May 1968, serving with them until January 1969. Transferring to VF-101, this was 5574's first of 2 occasions she would operate with the famous Navy Grim Reaper Squadron. It would also be with this unit that 5574 would be involved in 2 incidents that had the possibility to end her flying career. The first took place on the 6th of March 1969. 5574, piloted by Lieutenant Junior Grade William Joseph Reich, launched from NAS Oceana on a 4-ship conventional ordnance flight. The following wording comes from the Navy Safety Centre's Approach magazine. During a hung ordnance check, Phantom 5574 dropped back to check Phantom No. 2 while both aircraft were in a port turn. Phantom No. 2, by the way, was another F-4J, BU number 153826, and this was flown by Lieutenant Steve Bruce Husak. Following the check, 5574 advised 3826 that he was moving up onto the starboard side to resume the lead. 3826 failed to hear the word starboard and continued to look to his left. He did not acknowledge 5574's call because he did not have him in sight. As 5574 rolled wings level, he passed 3826 on the right side. Simultaneously, 3826, unable to find 5574 on the port side, also rolled wings level. The 2 aircraft collided, with 5574's port stabilator contacting 3826 just aft of the ram air intake. Jet exhaust from 5574 induced an immediate flame out of 3826's starboard engine. A relight was, however, obtained and both aircraft were able to land safely with only minor damage. After a small period of awaiting repair, both 5574 and 3826 returned to operational status by the 2nd of April 1969. 5574 transferred out of VF-101 in November 1969, moving on to another well-known US Navy fighter squadron, VF-41, the Black Aces. As with VF-101, photos of 5574 serving with VF-41 tend to be far and few between unless you really look. For a long time, this black and white publicity photo was the only example to be found. That was until on close examination of this photo, of a crowded flight deck aboard the USS Roosevelt during the 1970-71 cruise. You can just make out 5574 in amongst the other aircraft towards the rear. Serving from November 1969 to December 1972, this was at the time 5574's longest assignment with a US Navy fighter squadron. Moving on to VF-33 Tarsiers, named after a fierce primate, 5574 found herself on another 2-year assignment flying operationally for the Atlantic Fleet on a mixture of deployments and training missions. May 1974 saw 5574 return to her old unit VF-101. It's here another incident took place that could have ended her flying career. On this occasion, the assignment to the Reapers was only for a year. Bill Jarrett, a radar intercept officer, or RIO as they were commonly referred to, had acquainted himself with 5574 previously while serving with VF-33. He was now an instructor with VF-101, and he recounts the interesting flight he had on the 21st of February 1975. I was carrier QCing with a Nugget pilot, Don Coker, and on our first touch and go, the starboard axial sheared off on touchdown and we lost the wheel brake assembly and utility hydraulics. We had to bingo back to Oceania with a gear down and land on 32 left in the foam. Don did a great job and we stopped within about 3 or 4 feet of the centre line. Minimum damage was done to the plane. They hoisted it onto jack stands, replaced the main strut assembly, swung a gear, and it was back flying the next day. A fair number of beers would be consumed that evening in the O Club. In September 1975, 5574 transferred to the US Navy squadron she would serve longest with during her US naval career. From September 1975 to May 1981, 5574 would serve with VF-103, known as the Sluggers. Given the number 206 on the squadron, she would now be known as Club Leaf 206 by air and ground crews flying and maintaining her. Still based at Naval Air Station Oceana, 5574 would serve aboard the USS Saratoga when deployed, and it will come as no surprise that most of all the photographic evidence of 5574 service within the US Navy would come during the VF-103 assignment. One of the saddest affiliations 5574 had during this period was it was flown a number of times by a Navy lieutenant named Charles Frank Burlingham, known as Chick to his crewmates. He was an honour graduate of the United States Navy Fighter Weapons School Top Gun, and in 1979 he left active duty with the Navy and started to work for American Airlines, although he remained within the US Navy Reserve. On September 11, 2001, Burlingham was the captain of American Airlines Flight 77, which was hijacked and deliberately crashed into the Pentagon during the 9/11 attacks. His remains were laid to rest in the Arlington National Cemetery. Heading into 1980, 5574, along with many of her sister ships, lost their bright US Navy markings and adopted the new low visibility type. May 1981 saw 5574 return to one of her previous units, VF-33. Although her stay with that unit would only be very short, lasting approximately 4 months, and most of that would be deployed aboard the USS Independence. With the end of her assignment with VF-33 completed in August 1981, we would now see 5574 not only shift services but also coastlines. Serving with Marine Squadron VMFAT-101 at Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, Arizona, 5574's stay would only last 5 months. In December 1981, she was flown to the Naval Air Rework Facility, or NARF for short, located at Naval Air Station North Island and placed into open storage. 5574 would now reside here until April 1983, when events in the Southern Hemisphere centering around a group of islands called the Falklands would have the unlikely effect of giving 5574 a new lease of life and a new serial number. In Part 2, we will cover the Naval Air Rework Facility and the transfer to the RAF's famous Tiger Squadron. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video and would like to be notified about the future upcoming video releases by the group, hit the like button and subscribe.